There once lived a young man who shared a humble home with his mother, a woman whose love for him knew no bounds. From the time he was a small child, she had been everything to him. She cooked his meals, cleaned the house, and tended to his every need. Her hands were worn from years of hard work, but her heart was always full of love for her son. She had never once asked for anything in return. It was as though her whole life had been dedicated to his happiness and well-being. The boy grew into a young man, and the time came when he found love. His heart fluttered when he met a beautiful woman, a woman who made him feel alive in ways he had never known before. After a whirlwind romance, they were married, and so his wife moved into the house, joining him and his mother. At first, everything was idyllic. The young wife was polite and respectful, and his mother welcomed her into the home with warmth. They shared meals together, exchanged pleasantries, and the household seemed to flow smoothly. But, as is often the case, the harmony didn't last long. The quiet undercurrents of tension began to grow. The two women began to clash. It started with small things, the way his mother would criticize the way the wife cleaned or cooked, and the wife's growing frustration at being constantly judged. But over time, the tensions built, becoming more heated, more personal. The older woman's sharp words became more frequent, and the younger woman's silence more pronounced. Soon, the house was filled with an invisible war, with the two women on opposite sides, neither willing to back down. His mother would often call his wife lazy, telling her she was spoiled and didn't know the first thing about running a home. The wife, in turn, would accuse his mother of being too controlling, of constantly belittling her. Each day seemed to bring new arguments, new resentments. The young man, caught in the middle, tried his best to keep the peace, but it seemed like there was no way to resolve the tension. It was a Saturday evening, and the man had been working hard in the fields all day. He returned home feeling exhausted, hoping for a quiet evening to relax. As he walked through the door, he called out, "Wife, I'm tired. Could you bring me some water? I'd like to wash up before dinner." There was no answer. "Wife?" he called again, a little louder this time. "I'm hungry. Where's my dinner?" Silence. Frustrated, he walked into the kitchen, only to find his wife sitting there, staring at the floor. "What's wrong?" he asked, his patience thin. "Why don't you answer me?" His wife looked up, her eyes red from crying. "It's your mother," she said, her voice trembling. "She hates me. She doesn't stop criticizing me. She calls me lazy. She says I'm good for nothing. And now she's making our lives miserable. I can't live with her anymore." The young man was taken aback by the words. His heart sank. "But she's my mother," he replied, his voice breaking. "She's raised me, cared for me. How can you say that about her?" "I've tried, but I can't take it," his wife insisted. "Every day she complains, she makes me feel worthless. It's like I can't do anything right. I've asked you for months to choose between us, but you haven't done anything." His stomach twisted with guilt. The words hung in the air like a heavy weight. "But how can I choose?" he asked, his voice pleading. "She's my mother. She's been with me my whole life. How can I turn my back on her?" "You have to choose," his wife snapped. "It's either her or me. I won't live in this house with her any longer. You can't have both of us." That night, the man lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. His mind was a whirlwind of confusion. How could he choose? His mother had been his rock, the one person who had never wavered in her love for him. But his wife was young, vibrant, and full of life. He had fallen in love with her for her beauty, for her warmth, and for the life she had promised him. He couldn't imagine life without her. Yet his heart ached for his mother, who had given up everything for him. but the pressure from his wife was relentless. She had made it clear that she would not live with his mother, and his loyalty to his wife was pulling him in one direction, while his loyalty to his mother was holding him back. Torn between the two, he made a painful decision. His wife had promised him a life of love and happiness, but his mother had had her time. She was getting older, and her days were numbered. He decided that it would be best to let his mother go. He would keep his wife, and they would live together happily, without the burden of his mother's constant criticism. The next morning, the man approached his mother with a calm demeanor. "Mother," he said gently, "I'm taking you on a trip today. I want to take you up to the top of the mountain. It's beautiful there, and it will be cool. I think you'll enjoy it." His mother looked at him, her eyes full of confusion. "But, son, I am old. How can I walk up such a steep mountain?" she asked. "I'll carry you," he said, trying to sound reassuring. "Don't worry, it won't be too far. I'll carry you." As they began their journey up the mountain, the old woman was surprisingly cheerful. "This is so kind of you," she said, her voice warm with gratitude. "I haven't been up this mountain in so long. It feels good to see the familiar sights again." The man said nothing as they walked, his thoughts heavy with guilt. The higher they climbed, the more the weight of his decision pressed on him. His mother, despite everything, still trusted him, still believed in him. As they reached the top of the mountain, the old woman grew quiet. They stood at the edge of a high cliff, the wind blowing gently around them. "Son," she said softly, "I know what you've come here to do. I understand your choice." The man was stunned. "You know?" he asked, his voice trembling. "You understand?" She smiled at him, a sad, knowing smile. "Yes, I know. You've made your decision. But please, be careful. If you do this, hold on to that tree there," she said, pointing to a nearby branch. "That way, you won't fall with me." The man's heart broke as he looked at his mother. "Mother, how can you still love me? After everything I've done, after everything I've decided to do, you still care about me?" She smiled, her face filled with love. "Only a mother knows love," she said softly. "One day, you will have children of your own, and then you will understand. You will understand that love is not about receiving, but about giving. You will love them as I have loved you." The man was speechless, overwhelmed by the depth of his mother's love. He looked at her, and for the first time, he truly understood what she had given up for him. Her love had been unconditional. It was not based on what he could give her in return. She had loved him through all the pain, through all the mistakes, and still, she was willing to sacrifice everything for him. He sat down beside her, his head in his hands. Tears filled his eyes as he realized the enormity of what he was about to do. "I can't do it, Mother," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I can't choose her over you. I made a terrible mistake." His mother smiled gently, placing a hand on his shoulder. "It's not too late, my son. You've learned something today. You've learned that love is not something you can force. It's something you must nurture and cherish. You've learned that a mother's love is unlike any other." With newfound clarity, the man stood up, and without another word, helped his mother down the mountain. They returned home, and he made a choice. He sent his wife away, realizing that her love had never been as deep as his mother's. It had been a selfish love, one that demanded his loyalty at the expense of everything else. Years passed, and the man lived happily with his mother. He took care of her as she had once taken care of him. Each day was a blessing, filled with gratitude for the lessons she had taught him. His heart had learned the true meaning of love, and he would never take it for granted again. One day, he became a father himself. As he held his own child in his arms, he thought of his mother and the love she had shown him. And for the first time, he truly understood her. He understood the depths of a mother's love and how it could never be replaced or taken for granted.